great guest in studio to talk about an upcoming event here tomorrow night. It's a one night only from 6 to 8 at Shelton Veterans Memorial Hall. Brenda in the studio with us now to tell us a little bit more about this. Fascinating, too, timely as well, as we are in the middle of kind of the 30-year anniversary of what happened at Tiananmen Square, and seeing images over the weekend, over the last week, of protests happening in Hong Kong with millions and millions of people. Over the weekend, I feel like I read 1.5 million peaceful protesters have been gathering, such to the point that the police over there, they're having a hard.
Yeah.
They can't do anything. There's so many folks, and they're being peaceful in their activities.
Sure.
Fascinating too when we here can Google Tiananmen Square, and obviously the images that you see that pop up are most prominently the man in front of the tanks there, and that is nowhere to be found in China.
I was 18 when that happened. I remember being riveted by that, just watching the TV and just astounded by what was going on over there.
Folks have tried to figure out ways to kind of use Lego characters or books, and set up books in a way that kind of represented that image, and even those are being censored by the Chinese government. Brenda, thanks for coming on and talking with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me a little bit about this event that's going to be tomorrow night.
Well, it's a personal story. It's an opportunity to hear a personal story from a man called Kan Chiu, who lives and works in Seattle now, and but he was a student during what we call the Tiananmen Square massacre, and he eventually made it to America and became a citizen, and he works here, has a life here, and I heard him speak a while ago about something else, and this I had just heard about the Tiananmen Square anniversary. Did you know there's a memorial for that in Washington, D.C.? I didn't know
that.
I saw
that
a
either.
little bit of it on a newscast, and so I was already thinking about it, and then I heard Khan speak, and he just mentioned as an aside that he had been one of those students in that square, and so after I kind of cornered him after the meeting and had a chance to talk with him about that and let him expand on his story a little bit. It was so fascinating. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I wanted to find a way to make it possible for more people to hear about it. And he agreed to come to Shelton and speak, and so I've been working in my off hours to make that happen.
That's amazing.
That's great. That's a great find to get him here to speak.
So other than hearing him and feeling the need to share the story with us here in the county, I mean, is this kind of the first time you've ever done this, something like this? I mean, is this normally what you do, or?
No. Usually I go to work and work all day and go home and sleep and start over again. No, I've never tried to put anything like this together before. But I don't know, it's just really important that we're able to hear from somebody who was there what it was like to live in communist China, and what his perspective is on being in America.
And he's here fully now. I mean, his visa. I mean, he doesn't go back and forth. He's an American citizen now.
Correct.
Or wow.
Yeah. He and his family live and work in Seattle, and
where'd you hear him speak?
Actually, at a Republican club meeting. Yes, I admit it. I'm a conservative.
And he came.
but people are more complex and multidimensional than you would think, based on what you hear in the media.
Sure. Yeah.
No insult intended.
No worries.
No.
But Yeah, so that's why, the thing about Tiananmen Square was tangential to what he was talking about, and but that's what really grabbed my attention. And
I mean, it sounds like this speech that he gave really kind of changed your life a little bit.
well, no, actually,
Well, you talk very passionately about it, enough so to bring him here.
well, I've been a small business owner for 30 years and self-employed for that long, and but I started becoming politically aware, I don't know, about 10 years ago. And I do a lot. I don't see, we don't have TV at home. And so I don't see mass media a lot, but I listen to BBC and PBS, and if I hear something that piques my interest, I'll go online and go dig and
Sure.
find out about stuff. So I had already been interested in Tiananmen Square. I wasn't paying attention back then, and it's a fascinating story. I'm actually passionate about a lot of things, but this, I think it's important that people have the opportunity to hear this guy's story and hear firsthand one person's opinions about what it was actually like being in communist China, and the contrast between that and being here, and the freedoms that we enjoy here. And sometimes with that freedom comes responsibility.
Sure.
And plus, it's always a good thing to learn more. Why would you pass up an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the wider world? And, stuff, what happens in China affects what happens here, and what happens in Hong Kong affects us here, even in Shelton and Belfair and, Mason County.
It's interesting. He's got to be looking at this saying, wow, I mean, 30 years later, we're seeing this again, with these protests, and now even bigger numbers than 30 years ago. And it's almost like things are coming full circle again. So it would be interesting to hear him talk about what's going on now. It'd
be fascinating to know whether or not the current protesters have an awareness. I mean, there has, I'm presuming here, because we have a rich history that is widely uncensored, but for them and for folks in China, I mean, if you can't even Google the image or know much about what happens in Tiananmen Square, was this kind of an organic spring of protesting, or do they go, somebody told somebody, or there's a whisper campaign or something like that? That's fascinating. So how's it going to go tomorrow night?
It's interesting that the narrative in China evidently is that those students were disruptive terrorists and they deserved what they got. And it's alarming to me a little bit to hear that same line coming from China for the current protesters in Hong Kong.
Wow.
So tomorrow night, at the doors at the Memorial Hall will open at 6, and the story will start at 6:30. I just want to say, as being self-employed, I know how hard it is to make a meeting in the middle of the week, right after work. So I made sure that there's some healthy snacks and coffee and tea and water to kind of get you through and make things more comfortable. And and there will be time at the end. We're saving some time at the end for people to ask questions directly to Mr. Chu.
Wow.
So come prepared.
Well, Brenda, thanks for coming and telling us about this. Again, it's tomorrow night, 6 to 8, right here in downtown on West Franklin. 206 West Franklin is the address for Shelton Veterans Memorial Hall. Remembering Tiananmen Square, and it's going to be a fascinating conversation. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for letting me be here.
For sure, for sure.